Welcome to Tell Me About It on WUFT 89.1 and 90.1. I'm Sue Wagner here today with Bill Richards, the Executive Director of Paddle Florida, a nonprofit organization that supports canoeing and kayaking throughout the state of Florida. So, Bill, welcome to the show today. And tell us a little bit more about Paddle Florida. How did this whole thing evolve?
Well, thanks for having me, Sue. Paddle Florida actually started with a trip down the Swanee River in 2006, and about halfway it was myself and my partner and another couple, and we did the whole Swanee. And of course, when you do a self-contained paddling trip for multi-days, you have to carry all your gear, your house, your kitchen, your food, everything. And about halfway through the trip, there was a kind of a light bulb moment. I said, people would love this if they didn't have to cook their food and carry all this stuff. And so we set about over the next year and a half to create Paddle Florida. So we had our first trip in March of 2008. We had 163 people attend. We've not had that number since, but I worked with the people from Paddle, Georgia. I actually went on one of their trips in '07, and we discovered some things that were good about it and some things that we didn't want to duplicate. So we did spring and fall of '08 and '09, and then we expanded the trip with the help of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. We expanded the schedule to include a trip in each of the 5 water management districts. That was at the end of 2010. And to date, we've held 63 events all over the state, from the Keys to the Alabama border, and 63 events with paddlers from 44 states and 4 countries. So we're hoping that our 13th season will take place. We're hopeful that a lot of our participants, there's over 2,500 from all over, that they'll feel like me, and then I'm sick of this lockdown and want to get outside, and we'll be following all kinds of new procedures. But we're hoping to have a big season that starts in October.
So is there a person that actually leads the trip and helps to plan exactly what's going to happen throughout the many days that it's underway?
Yes, that's me.
Oh, that's you. Okay.
And
Executive Director and trip leader. Okay.
Well, trip leader, I've been doing this a long time, and I know I won't be doing it forever, so I'm training my replacement. Our assistant director is Janice Heinsohn, and she is getting the feel of things. She's been with us about 4 years, and so both of us do it. She's getting more and more hands-on, so I shouldn't say it's just me that does it, but we do plan the trips. We go to all these places, scout them, and then get with whoever is the person that we're in touch with, or the people, the different vendors and county parks departments, certainly with state parks and others.
So how long is the typical trip? Is it a 1-day, 2-day kind of thing, or weekend?
It's all over the map. We start our season each year in October on the Swanee River, and that's a 5-day trip, and we stay at all state park facilities there. In November, we're doing a new trip called the 10,000 Islands Paddling Festival. That's 3 days or 3 nights at Collier Seminole State Park, which is going to be a base camp. In December, it's another new trip we're calling the Treasure Coast Paddling Adventure, which starts at Fort Pierce Inlet State Park and ends in the city of Sebastian. In January, we're doing a redo of our trip that we did 4 or 5 years ago called the Great Calusa Blueway. That's in and around Fort Myers. We start at Koreshan State Park, and we spend the last 2 nights at Cayo Costa State Park, which is really a beautiful place. In February, we're doing the wild, wonderful Withlacoochee.
That's great.
We'll also stay 2 nights at Rainbow Springs State Park, a little bit of a detour off the Withlacoochee, and then we finish in the Gulf of Mexico. And I think we've done that this might be our 8th time doing that one.
Wow.
In March, we have another new trip called Springtime on the Chipola, and we will start at Florida Caverns State Park and then paddle, I think it's about 70 miles over 6 days down the Chipola River where we take out. And then we finish every season back on the Swanee with the Swanee River Paddling Festival. That'll be, it's always the first weekend in April. And we usually get a big crowd for that. We usually have 100 people. That's the maximum there. Other maximums for people range from 50 to 75.
So when you say festival, is it just a gathering of lots of people, or does it include other activities as well?
Yes. Like the new 10,000 Islands Paddling Festival, those are the only 2 that will be a base camp situation. And we, in the case of 10,000 Islands, it's a self-shuttle, and people get to the various beautiful paddling venues there in and around Naples. And the festival that we've been doing, I think this is 9 years, on the Swanee River, to end the season, we have, like I say, the last 5 years we've had the maximum of 100 people. We've had to turn folks away. And it's 2 days paddling, and you're shuttled to, the first day is from Madison Blue Spring back to Swanee River State Park, and the second day is from a place called Gibson Park back to Swanee River State Park. And there's 1 night for music, a benefit concert, and then there's a lecture. I hate to call it a lecture. It's a presentation by someone involved in grassroots environmental organizations. We've had Florida Defenders of the Environment, Florida Springs Institute, Florida Paddling Trails Association, and the Florida Society for Ethical Ecotourism over the years.
So they kind of do a presentation on what's happening with currently with the springs and with the rivers and the state of everything in Florida?
Yes. Sometimes it's more localized because we are at Swanee River State Park. We're in, the heart of Springs country. And so oftentimes they'll talk about the springs, and a lot of times it's about the threats that, writ large, Florida's water and the various reasons that there are issues concerning, especially with springs, about overpumping, about nitrogen pollution. There's a lot of issues to discuss, and the people that we bring in are experts.
That's one. We're going to take just a brief break right now. We want to hear more about Paddle Florida and maybe some of the adventures that you've had over the years that were kind of noteworthy. So we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome back to Tell Me About It. I'm Sue Wagner here with Bill Richards. He is the Executive Director of Paddle Florida. It's an amazing organization that is dedicated to canoeing and kayaking in Florida, and they have adventures that start in October and continue through April. And Bill, you were telling us a lot about these different trips, and I'm assuming it's mostly adults, but you said that sometimes children do come along on these trips?
Yes, indeed. it's probably 2009 or 2010 on the Swanee, we had a 4-year-old who was with his grandmother who lived on the river, and they came with us for, I think that was one of the long trips, a week-long, 123 miles, and so that was our youngest participant. And our oldest was 3 or 4 years ago at the Swanee River Paddling Festival, who was 95, and it was his first time paddling.
Oh, my word.
And he said he loved it so much he was going to buy a boat.
He's very confident.
Yeah.
That's really amazing.
So it's never too late.
There you go. What if somebody is not really familiar or very skilled at paddling or canoeing? Do you offer instruction for those?
Yes, for the most part, we have youngish retirees, and for the most part, again, we have people who know exactly what they're doing. For each trip, we have, depending on the number of folks, we have a lead boat and a sweep boat, and again, depending on how many folks there are, we'll have either 1 or 2 people in the middle. These folks are highly trained. You can go to our website and look at our volunteers, and can handle anything that comes up. Now, there are 2, not problems, but 2 issues that we sometimes deal with is someone that's inexperienced, and for our coastal trips, we suggest that they don't do it. That they shouldn't, if they haven't paddled in open water before, they shouldn't make us the first time that they do that. But oftentimes we get lots of calls of what type of equipment they need, and every once in a while we'll have someone show up with a boat that is not suitable. We like to recommend 14 feet for the boat. As I said, sometimes there are people that come with like a 9 or 10 foot boat, which isn't going to be fun for them, making their way sometimes 17, 18 miles on the water in a boat that was meant for playing in the waves. So
makes sense.
We have that issue with equipment, and most of those things are ironed out before the trip, because naturally they call and wonder, if they're doing this for the first time, can they do it? And most people can do most of the trips that we do. As I said, the coastal environments, you need different skills, you need different equipment, and we try and accommodate anyone who has a desire to do this and to learn how to do this. And again, we've got a pack of volunteers who have decades of experience, and sometimes we'll set up training for a group of people on the first day if they're unfamiliar with what to expect.
And you've said you've taken extra precautions due to the COVID-19 pandemic to make sure that everyone is safe when they go on these trips?
Yes. We're complying with most of the common sense rules that are in place across the state, across the country. Obviously, social distancing. Participants will be required to wear masks at the campsite and buffs on the water. There's also a whole COVID-19 safe rescue practices, even though we don't have many rescues. On the water, paddlers distance themselves from each other. We'll have hand sanitizer. Breakfast and dinner are catered, so we'll be serving food so that participants won't be touching utensils. We'll have disposable, eco-friendly plates. We work closely with the Florida Society for Ethical Ecotourism, and they have guidelines and recommendations. We also have to work with state parks. I've been in touch with them very regularly, and state parks are open. right now,
Mm-hmm.
but that's subject to change.
That's
So we
true.
have to deal with that and deal with the different counties have their own rules. So this year, this upcoming season, it's a great schedule, but really today we're not sure if all these events are going to take place. It depends on the course of the pandemic.
Hmm. Well, speaking of the pandemic, that's one challenge that you have. Have you ever had any interesting encounters with wildlife during these trips? I know we've got a few alligators here in the state of Florida.
There are alligators in Florida?
Yeah, didn't you know? I thought you knew.
Wow. Yes. Well, on all the trips, there's opportunities for wildlife viewing. I don't know if we said at the beginning, but our mission, our nonprofit mission, is to raise awareness about water conservation, wildlife preservation, restoration of springs, and protection of waterways in Florida. So that wildlife preservation is one that, when people get on the water and they're so close to the resource, we hope that they might adapt their behavior to, work toward those goals. So every trip there's wildlife. Like on the Swanee, the Withlacoochee, you probably aren't going to go a day without seeing an alligator. But alligators, we tell people just keep your distance, and it's worked out. Knock on wood, there haven't been any encounters with wildlife except picture taking.
Those are the best kind of encounters. Get the picture of the deer or the birds, and it's I know our springs and a lot of our rivers are just absolutely beautiful. And when you're in a
Yes.
canoe or a kayak, I mean, you've got kind of that perfect view to be really, really close to nature.
Yes, the other thing about that is that paddle boards have become extremely popular in the industry, and we've seen an increase in people who want to do these trips on a paddleboard. Now, when I speak to them, I have to let them know what the distances are, what type of shape they're in, and most folks who ask to come with a paddleboard are very experienced and do mileage. These trips, with the exception of the two where we have a base camp, we're moving downriver each day, and we have an overnight stop, and we serve them dinner and then breakfast in the morning, and they camp. And there's a truck that takes all their gear to the next overnight stop, and then they wait for dinner and a program. But it's worked out well.
Well, that sounds wonderful. So, if people want to find out more about Paddle Florida, what is the best way? What is your web address, and are you on Facebook and some other social media platforms?
Yes. First, our website is paddleflorida.org, paddleflorida.org. We are just about, I think, today, certainly by this weekend, we will have 30,000 Facebook followers. Our Instagram feed that we post to every day, I think we're over 1,800, and our YouTube channel has, I think, 20 videos there.
Wow.
We've also got it's this coming Friday. Because of the pandemic, we tried to find some creative ways to, keep our profile out there, and we're doing a summer music series, and so we've had performers in May, June, and July. We've got one coming up this month and one in September, right before the season.
Wow. Well,
So,
this is wonderful. We're running out of time right now, but I want to tell our listeners that paddleflorida.org can provide more of this information. We'll post it on our website as well as all of your social platforms so people will be able to get more information. And Bill, thanks so much for telling us about this fabulous organization here in the state.
oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, Sue. It was a pleasure.
Great. Well, take care. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
That was Bill Richards from Paddle, Florida, on today's episode of Tell Me About It. To listen to previous episodes of the show, go online at wuft.org/tellmeaboutit or on the WUFT Media app. I'm Sue Wagner on Tell Me About It on WUFT 89.1, 90.1.